Little Ones, the Sleep Manual Podcast.
Welcome to the Little Ones Podcast, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with Nikki.
Hi.
My Little Ones co-founder and fellow sleep expert. At Little Ones, we have helped over 300,000 families around the world with their baby and toddler sleep. So if you need a hand, make sure you visit us at www.little-ones.co or download our app from the app stores. On our podcast today, we are going to discuss why naps are so important for your little one.
Yeah, we sure are, because naps are super important. And actually, I don't think people realize quite how much naps have the ability to totally make or destroy a good night's sleep. It's just fully underrated, and sometimes I think it's swept under the carpet a little bit in terms of looking to improve someone's child's sleep. People don't realize how important naps are. So today we're going to be looking at, of course, the physical and neurological benefits of naps, like why do babies need naps? Then we're going to look at how naps massively affect night sleep, which is a big one for us. We talk about this a lot and we'll explain why. We'll look at some nap strategies and what your nap schedule should look like for your other one. And then hopefully by the end of this episode, you have some really good tools to take away to get your little one napping perfectly.
Yeah, perfect. I think, yeah, like Nikki said, naps are just so important for babies. I think we don't actually realize how much naps affect the nighttime sleep.
But we realize. A lot of people don't realize.
Yeah. So let's have a look, first of all, at the physical and the neurological benefits of naps and for babies.
Yes, we know naps are important, but I don't think people realize precisely why in a development sense. So remembering, of course, that our babies are developing at such an incredibly rapid rate, and you see this in their physical growth, right? Like them physically growing and all of these incredible milestones that they achieve, like rolling and sitting and standing and walking and language and being able to grab toys and physical coordination. All of these incredible, very obvious skills are evidence of how much our little ones are changing and growing very rapidly. It is the biggest period of growth in our lives. And naps are incredibly important to help facilitate all that growth and development, because as well as the physical, very obvious development, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens inside your child's brain and also in their body, which napping well is helping building and strengthening. Things like memory consolidation, which is really important because your little one is learning every single second that they're awake during the day. Things that they're seeing, things that they're hearing and experiencing and touching. These need to be consolidated and stored in their memory, and this happens when they're sleeping. Their brain is developing, their emotions are regulating, there's neurons firing and connecting all over the place. And this really, the biggest chance they have of this happening is when they're asleep, because when they're awake is when they're taking all this stuff in, and then it has to be consolidated, and short-term memory is transferred to long-term memory while they're asleep. Quite aside from that incredible stuff, there's some sort of simpler things too, like napping obviously has a massive impact on your little one's mood, so their behavior, their temperament. We all know when our babies and our toddlers don't sleep, then they are grumpy, and nobody wants a unnecessarily grumpy baby or toddler. For nothing else, naps are really important to your little one just to avoid that.
I think it's quite hard to tell too with a baby when they are grumpy, because they just cry, right? Like they're not like a toddler that has a tantrum. So you can see that difference in toddlers quite easily. But in a baby, they're crying, they cry for everything. That's the only way of communicating. So a lot of people that start following our sleep program, for example, will just in the first few weeks notice a change in their baby's temperament, because
or they're crying less.
Yeah, they're crying less. They're just overall happier because they aren't so tired or so overtired. So I think it's just so hard to tell.
Yeah, and that means that a lot of the time I think people can get quite confused and think,
oh, my baby's hungry.
Like, I just think, tiredness and overtiredness and all of that doesn't get the credit it's due. They think their baby has trapped wind, or that their baby's gassy, or that their baby's got a sore tummy, or their baby's hungry, especially younger babies. Whereas actually your baby probably just needs to go to sleep.
Yeah, for sure. Should we look at how the naps actually affect the night sleep? So
because this is really the backbone of most of our advice, to be perfectly honest, isn't it? Is that if you get the days right, the nights will follow. Do you want to explain how that formula works, Amanda?
Yeah, so I think in any human of any age, we all need X amount of sleep in a 24-hour period. So if we look at a baby or
look at an adult, the advice for us is how many 8 hours sleep a night as an adult
that's right.
is what we need.
God, I need at least 9.
I feel like I need 15 sometimes.
So for a baby, if we're aiming to have 12 of those hours of sleep overnight, say from 7 at night till 7 in the morning, then we need to break up the rest of the sleep throughout the day. However, there's a bit of a trick here, because the timing of those naps is super important, because we have to break up the sleep, but we also can't have a period of awake time too long or too short, because that will then mean that your baby will end up having too much sleep or potentially not enough sleep, and they can very quickly get into being overtired if there's a too long a gap in between the naps. It's just
it is a bit of a tricky formula. Yeah,
it's a very mathematical formula for every age, and it changes so quickly, especially in those first few months too. What worked at 3 weeks old doesn't work at 6 weeks old, and I think again we don't really put the importance of how that appreciate how that changes so quickly.
So just to clarify, so what we're really saying is, if your baby sleeps in a really simple example, if your baby doesn't have enough sleep during the day, so if they have their naps are too short, they have too much awake time, then those bad naps are going to affect the night sleep, because they're going to be overtired.
They're going to go into the nighttime overtired, which is then going to contribute to more night waking, or split nights even, because where your baby wakes up, they then just are so overtired they can't get back to sleep. So inevitably you end up with just a baby that's awake for a large chunk of the night,
and
which
early morning
napping, early morning waking. So everybody, I know that I could tell if my children had a bad day of naps just because we were out and about or we were doing something, then
the night's going to be bad.
Then the nights were awful. They were always awful.
But then we have to acknowledge that the reverse is true, and this is something we see a lot, that the babies, especially newborn or younger babies, are having too much sleep during the day. We see it a lot in younger babies, or babies who are, say, 12 weeks old, and their parents are still aiming for very newborn nap routines with them, and they're sleeping too much during the day. And as Amanda explained, in a nutshell, that daytime sleep has to be deducted from the nighttime sleep.
Yeah.
So if they've overslept during the day, they're going to need and want awake periods during the night.
Overnight, so they're going to be much more wakeful.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't really link those two things together. They think, oh, my baby's napping so well, that's awesome, but they've got bad nights. And other advice we see out there is saying you need to teach your baby to self-settle, or you need to wean night feeds and all this kind of stuff. And we look at that situation and straight away say, how long are the naps in the day? Maybe your baby's just oversleeping. And what a simple solution.
It is. Because at the end of the day, they're sleeping. Other than their feeding, their sleeping is the only other thing that you can actually control and you can monitor. You can't control if your baby has colic or wind or if they're sick. You can't control and to some extent if they're self-settling. So you can't necessarily control those things, but you can control their sleep, and you can know
specifically
if they have
their
slept
naps
enough or if they haven't slept enough, and that is a big indicator of what is going on with your baby's day sleep or their night sleep.
Yeah.
And
it's such a catch-22, isn't it? Too much sleep in the day, they don't sleep at night. They don't have enough sleep in the day, they don't sleep at night. But we can't stress enough just how big this is. This is the key and most common thing we see all the time. That is going wrong, if you like, with baby's sleep.
Someone tagged us on Instagram yesterday in a long story that she had done with her second child, actually. She followed our program with her first baby, went super well, thought she was following it with her second. However, she couldn't figure out why the baby was all of a sudden not wanting to go into her bed, even though she was drowsy, didn't want to go into her bed. She was waking all night, and she worked out. She downloaded our app, checked the schedule, and she was letting her second baby sleep an hour and a half longer per 24-hour period during the day. And as soon as she cut out that hour throughout the naps, the hour and a half throughout the naps through the day, immediately the baby started sleeping through the night, and immediately she was tired enough to be able to go to bed nicely again. And until the nighttime is properly consolidated, and that won't happen really until at the earliest 6 months old, and that's if you've got a perfectly sleeping baby. Until that nighttime is consolidated, there are definitely going to be wakeful periods, all dependent on the daytime naps, if it's too much, too little. So
as an example, I was looking through some TikTok comments actually just over the last few days, and we get a lot of comments on our TikTok things around, because actually I'd done a video about when should you drop night feeds, and so we got a lot of comments from people saying, well, my baby is however old and they're still having this many feeds in the night, and quite a few people asking for some advice. And there were comments around, my baby is 8 months old and they're still waking for 3 to 4 times a night. Do you think they're hungry?
No.
Yeah,
no,
and
they're definitely not.
Yeah,
not
and
that
straight
many
away,
times.
We can, and there's even other people commenting going, they are probably still hungry, or they need to learn to self-settle. And we comment straight away and say, actually, first tell us what's happening with the naps, because at that age, it's pretty common that they're having too many naps or for too long during the day, and
or
that's
not enough.
8 months they could still be having the 3 naps when
or
it's sabotaging their night sleep.
Or they've dropped their third nap and they're having a really long nap in the morning,
Long
and
awake
then hardly
period or something.
anything in the afternoon,
right.
so that they get overtired before bed.
Yeah,
Can be
the first question we
changed.
ask literally every time when someone is asking us for advice is, tell us what your little one's naps are. We need to know the
happening
time
during
of
the
those
day.
naps and the lengths. And then, honestly, 90% of the time we'll need to make pretty significant changes to the naps, and that makes pretty significant changes to the night. And that's where we would always start every single time. So, Amanda, do you want to talk about the sort of ideal, how the timing and lengths can really affect things?
So we've already talked a little bit about this. In an ideal day, when your baby is having 3 naps a day, there would be a short nap in the morning, a longer nap in the middle of the day, and then a short nap in the afternoon. Now, throughout our programs from 0 right through to 3 years old, we aim to have that long nap in the middle of the day for a couple of reasons. Now, that first reason is it coincides with a natural dip in energy levels at all ages, because of having your long night's sleep at night. Then you have in the middle of the day, even adults, we have that natural dip in energy.
That's why they have siestas in Mexico.
Yeah, that's right. So then another reason is if you have multiple children or at home, especially if you've got multiple toddlers and a baby, then they will be napping all at the same time. Or if you've got a baby and an older toddler who's stopped napping, then at least you can have some one-on-one time, some quiet time with that toddler while your baby's
like a good
napping.
couple hours. Yeah.
Or if you've got older children or whatever, if you're doing school drop-offs and things, then your baby is napping at home in their bed while you've got time to do things that you need to, work or whatever. And those short naps on either side of the long nap, whether they are a young baby or an older baby where they've only got one short nap in the morning, that works well to get out and about. You can do those naps on the go, or the short nap in the afternoon Nikki would do while she was prepping dinner in a carrier or whatever.
Yeah, I used to have Charlie in the front pack for that late afternoon nap while I was cooking dinner and doing dinner for the older kids. And actually, when my youngest, my third, was little, and by then my eldest was starting school, and I used to drop the older one at school and then go and do my grocery shopping or whatever I needed to do, and have the baby in the front pack or the pushchair and do her short morning nap while I was out and about getting all my chores done. And
and then that also leaves that middle of the day nap to have a really good sleep if something happens. They're at home, they're in their bed, it's nice and dark, and they can catch up if they need.
So and that's also that long lunchtime sleep is the sleep that is retained in our schedules from newborn till when your toddler drops their naps altogether somewhere around 3 years old. So locking in that really long, nice lunchtime sleep is so strong, and it becomes such a strong part of your little one's circadian rhythm. And it's the least disruptive nap structure to have when you're going through all the different nap transitions that you're going to encounter. So that's why we structure our naps this way.
But the other reason that we have that longer nap in the middle of the day is for when your baby, before they change to just one nap a day. The short nap in the morning has a real effect on the morning wake up time. So if they are having a long nap in the morning instead of a short nap, it can mean that they start naturally waking earlier and earlier in the morning because they actually don't need to be awake for very long.
They can finish their nighttime sleep, in that long morning nap. And let's be honest, your baby waking up at 5 a.m. is just a different kind of hell altogether.
Yeah, unless your baby is going to bed at 5 p.m., then it's not a good place to be.
My puppy woke up at 5:04 a.m.
Oh gosh,
like awake, and was wanting to get up. That's the middle
of the night.
I know. I was so unimpressed. I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, so the same thing that can happen with that morning nap, we can have problems with the afternoon nap wreaking havoc.
The late afternoon nap.
If you're on 3 naps, that late afternoon nap can affect the nighttime sleep and settling by if it's too long or if it's too late in the day. It can really stuff up your baby going to bed. And I know some people hold on to that nap for much longer than required because they're like, oh, but my baby can stay up now till 9 o'clock or whatever and hang out with us, which is all very good and well if it works, but you're actually robbing your baby probably of an hour sleep just for a half-hour nap type thing. Like you're potentially pushing them too far into that nighttime when overall, if they didn't have the nap, they'd sleep more.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, as we said, it's a tricky formula, and we've managed to work it all out for you and make it really simple.
If you're wondering what sort of naps you should really be looking at for your little one, just quickly dependent on their age. So we would generally say hold on to 3 naps until about 6 months old. So like Amanda said, that's a short morning nap, a long lunchtime sleep, and a short late afternoon nap. Then but somewhere between 6 and 8 months, you'll drop that late afternoon sleep. We do have an entire podcast on nap transitions where we explain all of these transitions and how to do each one. So if you're interested, go and find that because it can be a tricky time. Then somewhere around 15 months, your little one then drops from 2 naps down to 1. It
can be anywhere between 12, 13 months to 15 months. If you're
somewhere around there.
Yeah, dependent on the wake up time.
Yeah.
But
so that's at that point they're dropping that short morning sleep and they're left with that long lunchtime sleep still in place. And then somewhere around 3 years old, your little one is going to drop that remaining lunch sleep altogether.
Yeah.
And, like I said, listen to our nap transitions podcast to know when your little one is ready and also to know what to do to navigate through those nap transitions. So Amanda, do you want to talk about, because if once your toddler's down to just that one nap has the real potential to ruin our toddler's bedtime and night sleep. And I think this also is something a lot of people don't realize. They're saying their toddler's being naughty at night, their toddler's having these massive bedtime battles, and again, 9 times out of 10 we can straight away quite easily identify it's to do with their nap.
Yeah, that's right. So their nap, whether it's too late in the afternoon, too long, or too early in the morning, it can wreak havoc on those nights. So really, we're thinking after 2 years old, that nap needs to start becoming smaller and smaller until eventually it is either gone or every second day or only there when needed. So after 2 years old, if there's anything going on with the nighttime, then early morning, or they're settling at nighttime, their bedtime, then have a good look at what's happening in that nap, because especially boys we've found, and also there's just other children. My first did it where she just loved sleeping during the day, and if she went to sleep, then she would sleep for 2.5, 3 hours, no matter how old she was. She wasn't the kind of kid who would wake up and calibrate her day, because she was just such a deep sleeper. I would see that as soon as she started mucking around at bedtime, or she was awake for 20 minutes. Luckily, she used to just stay in bed, but she'd be awake for 20 minutes, half an hour, just mucking around in her bed. I needed to look at the nap and what was happening with the nap. And 9 times out of 10, like Nikki said, we needed to trim that back.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Amanda was saying about robbing them of their nighttime sleep. My son was exactly the same. By the time he was about 3, and he was at daycare, if he had a 20-minute or a 10-minute, I'm not even kidding, if he had a 10-minute sleep on the way home from daycare or something like that, he would be awake until 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Whereas his normal bedtime, probably at that age, because he would have been transitioning out of napping, he would have been in bed by about 6:45 and asleep. Whereas a tiny little nap really ended up robbing him of 2 hours of nighttime sleep.
Easily. So I remember one time...
It's really incredible how it happens.
I remember one time Millie, she did a similar thing, or she fell asleep, and I was like, oh, maybe she's a little bit sick or something. I'll let her have a sleep. I think it was only like
fatal
a
error.
half-hour sleep.
Yeah.
And she was up. Luke and I were going to bed at 10 o'clock. And she was still awake. I'm like, this 3.5-year-old, what is she doing? This is not okay.
And you always think, I've done it, where occasionally that's happened, especially with my third, and you've gone, oh, I could use a half-hour break. Yeah. Like, I could use 45 minutes of just, oh, she'll be fine. And then you massively pay for it at the other end of the day. Yeah. Yeah.
So and more than that, like you're paying for it for hours.
For days. Yeah, and then the next day they're super grumpy because they went to bed late, and it's just this horrific flow-on effect. So I hope you're starting to see how important naps are, not just for your little one's development like we talked about, but also how significantly the naps can sabotage the nighttime sleep. So let's actually talk about how something you can do to help your little one have really good naps is make sure that they're napping in a nice sleep-inducing environment, as we would recommend with night sleep. But sometimes naps are a bit harder to achieve, so we have to pull out all the tricks to get our little ones to nap well. And the older they get, the more they're going to have FOMO, the more they're going to start resisting to nap if there's something else they think they want to be doing. So the first thing we would say is to create a really dark, nice, calming, comforting sleep environment for your little one. And of any age, we would recommend having no toys or musical mobiles or anything stimulating, because why would they want to nap if they could be looking around and playing with something and listening to something?
Yeah,
That's
sure.
it. We do want them listening to something, don't we, Amanda?
Yeah, white noise is the quickest and easiest and just most magical thing that you can add into any baby or toddler or even sometimes adult's room to help them sleep. White noise is fantastic, whether it I would recommend for a younger baby or a baby who is learning how to self-settle to have a shh sound going, because that just immediately enacts the calming reflex to be able to help them calm and sleep. Whereas a plain white noise...
And lucky for everybody, we have this wonderful shh sound on our white noise
over
albums,
and over and over and over,
which is available on all streaming platforms. So turn that up loud.
Yeah, and then otherwise just having, for a child who's sleeping, really just plain white noise or pink noise, or I prefer actually myself brown noise.
Me too.
To help them sleep, and it gives them something to tune into and listen to and forget about their toys and their things to play with. And
that you promised you'd go to the playground after their sleep.
Yeah, that's right. So making sure that their room is conducive to sleep, and if you're doing naps out and about, you can do similar things. You can have the dark cover over their pushchair. You can
have portable white noise, or play it off your phone, or
play it off your phone. But then, as Nikki said, these naps are going to become harder and harder to manage if they are in a transition. And these are where sometimes we have to just use the car to take your baby or toddler on a drive to half an hour down the road to get them to have that sleep, because you need them to have that sleep sometimes.
That's right. Although, if you're having a sleeps at home, a very dark room,
yes,
some white noise, and also we would recommend having a little, especially the older your baby gets, having a little wind down routine before naps as well. So it can be a mini version of a bedtime routine. Maybe it's a song or even a book into their swaddle or sleeping bag, and then a sleepy phrase that you say, it's sleep time now, darling. The same steps, just repeated, nice short routine. It just helps signal to your little one that sleep is coming.
I think if you even think about what you do yourself before you go to bed, that you go to the toilet, you brush your teeth, you put on your pajamas, you do the same thing, whether you think you do or not. But
in the same order.
In the same order, you do the same thing. You get into bed, you put your blankets on, you put your pillow a certain way. It's exactly the same for babies, and that just helps them learn that sleep is approaching and sleep is next. So, shall we wrap this up, because this has been a pretty big topic
lot of
already.
Information. Yeah, it's so important. We've talked about the physical and neurological benefits to your little one of having good sleep, and that doesn't just mean naps, that means nighttime sleep. But then that leads into the really important topic of, to get good nighttime sleep, you have to get the naps right, because the naps are just such an underrated sabotager of nighttime sleep.
And it's just so much easier to get your naps right during the day than trying to sort out nighttime sleep at night. I just don't understand why so many sleep training things, or so much advice out there, is to just focus on the nights. I don't want to deal with anything at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, I know. And also, why would you want to go down the road of some kind of sleep training or whatever routine? Sometimes that is inevitable, but why would you go down that road if you potentially didn't have to? If you could fix a couple things in the daytime, and then everything else is going to fall into place almost automatically.
Fix the things that you can control.
To me,
fix the things you can control,
and then see where you are. And then see, and then go, oh, okay, actually, yes, that's fine, but we do actually need to work a little bit on self-settling.
Yeah, and there are just so many benefits to sleeping well. Like we talked about the growth and development, but also the immune system support, hormone regulation, all of those things just have massive advantages if your baby, toddler, adults are sleeping well. It's
and
just
that's such a key part of that.
Such a key part of that.
I hope that's given you something to take away. We would definitely, obviously, encourage everybody to focus on and actually prioritize naps. Like we said, it is a priority. It's really important.
But if you need to get out and about, you don't let it
ruin your day.
Monopolize your day. There are tips and tricks and ways of manipulating the naps and making it work for yourself and your baby and toddler. So we go through all of that in our sleep program as well.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today. That was a lot of information to take in. Hopefully you found it useful. Don't forget to find us and follow us on all our other social media channels, and come and see us if you need more help with your little one's sleep. www.littlenones.co. We would love to see you there. And as Amanda's been saying, we've done all the hard work for you. We've got all of the nap routines and schedules and structures and troubleshooting mapped out right from birth to 3 years old. So if you need a hand with anything, it is all inside our app and our sleep programs there. Again, thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
This is Little Ones, the Sleep Manual Podcast.